So I'm making this video to talk about this Assume Persona plugin that I made for Claude. And basically what it is, it's a persona skills manager. So, Claude has like custom skills that are basically just markdown files that you can invoke. This is a way to manage those. And I built it specifically to manage like personas, which are subject matter experts about really whatever topic you want to make one for. So there's some niceties. So it includes things like a researcher, agent, and auditor that will help you improve your personas. And yeah, generally just so you don't have to like manually update your skills. And there's some neat little context management stuff too that I will demo. So I've got Claude open here on the left. I'm going to install this plugin by doing /plugin, go to marketplaces, add a marketplace, and the marketplace that I created is dgca/mai. So this is going to clone my repo, and right now we've only got one plugin, and it's Assume Persona. So I'm going to install it for me and my user scope so that all my sessions have access to it. And I've got to restart Claude. Cool. So actually, I'm going to clear this first, just so we have a little bit more room. So after installing it, if I do /, you can see that I've got a bunch of commands here. And I think we could just kind of jump right into the demo and say, assume persona create. So if I want to create like a subject matter expert for really anything, I just do assume persona create. And why don't we make one that's like web accessibility expert? And this is going to create a persona, and it's going to ask me some questions if there's anything that, like I want to provide out of the box so that it knows. But then it's also going to go and do a bunch of research. So for this, I'm just going to say, this persona is web accessibility expert when it comes to modern web development, research the latest best practices. And like normally you could be, a lot more verbose than this if there's any specifics that you want to throw in there. But this is going to go do some research, and it will return with a created persona. And this part, like since it's got to do research, might take a minute. So depending on how long this takes, I might edit out a part of the video. Okay, so that took about 4 minutes. I feel like web accessibility expert, there's probably like a ton of domain knowledge there to research. If I would have chosen something like less complex, it would have maybe taken less time. And one thing I call out is that because it's using subagents for a lot of the research, like our context window doesn't really get too bloated. So after it has done the research and created the persona, which it's using like templates to do that so that they all actually remain somewhat reasonable in size, it's going to ask me where I want to save it. I can either put it in my user scope, which is global, or in the project locally. So I'm going to choose local. And then it's going to write those files and then validate them as well. Cool. So now I can see the persona content, and I can write this file. So it just created the persona and it loaded it, so it's available to use right away. Cool. So what that actually did, and remember that I stored this in my local context. So in Claude skills, now I have this assume persona web accessibility expert, and you can see here that the skill is actually just like pretty small, but we have the content in a persona MD file, which is like 234 lines of code. And the reason for that is because we don't want to like double load things. So this just makes sure that we're only loading them once. For any Claude session, we're keeping track of what personas have been loaded to avoid like loading context window. It's, yeah, really trying to manage that these days. Okay, so right now this is kind of just like, like a researcher to help you create skills. So let's talk about the things that actually make it a little bit more interesting. So we just created a persona. Let's say that in this project, actually, I'm going to use a real example here because this is my MAI project that I'm working on where I'm storing plugins that I'm creating. And I have a Claude plugin dev persona that I made. So I want to load that every time automatically when I come here. And I made this like plugin data folder with assume persona inside and then config.json. Here, actually, before I do this, I'm going to exit this session, start one back up, and say, hi, do you have any personas loaded? And it says that there's no personas are currently active in this conversation. So I'm going to exit again, clear, and then here do autoload Claude plugin dev, save that. And then when I open up Claude again, let's do the same thing. Hi, do you have any personas loaded? So now it's telling me that the persona loaded from project config is Claude plugin dev, which has a bunch of like information about making Claude plugins, which is exactly what we want for this repo. And if I can actually do that same thing, by the way, by doing assume persona status. And this will actually just run a script to make it even a little bit easier. So yeah, loaded persona is Claude plugin dev. Great. Let's actually go over maybe the top commands we saw. Create. We also have a load command. So, we're automatically loading Claude plugin dev, but maybe I want to manually load. Let's load UX designer. So assume persona load UX designer. Also, I can like omit this and it'll ask me which persona I want to load. But since I know that it's called UX designer, I'll do that. And now I have two personas loaded. And if I do assume persona status, this will also verify that there's two loaded. Cool. One of the things that I like about this is that in a session, like we've got our auto-loaded persona, we loaded UX designer manually, maybe we're doing some UX work and our context window got super big and we want to clear it or compact it. If we clear it, we would just by default lose any, like if you're just using skills, you'd lose everything. If we cleared it without some sort of like state management for these personas, we would lose the UX designer. But this will keep your personas across clear. So after you clear the context, if I do assume persona status, they will be, well, they should be loaded at least. Yeah, so we loaded from the project config, Claude plugin dev, and then restored from sessions UX designer. So that context is still in there, even though we cleared our context window. Let's see. So some other commands. Assume persona list will show the personas that you have available. So we've got our Claude plugin dev, which is loaded, local. You get some like validation, whether or not the persona is good. We have our technical documentation writer, which is in my user scope. So that one I can use from any project. UX designer is local and web accessibility expert is local as well. If I've loaded a persona and I don't want it to remain across the sessions, I can assume persona clear, UX designer, that'll clear from the session. And then when it'll actually keep it in this session, but then if I clear the context window, it won't get reloaded. We've seen status, which lists the personas that you have currently active. And I think one of my favorite things about this thing is this audit command. So you can tell it to audit a persona. Let's audit UX designer. And what it's going to do is it's going to read the content, decide, is this a good persona? Could it be improved? It's going to go do some research to figure that out. And I'm assuming this is also going to take, a few seconds. So I will probably fast forward here as well. But when it's done, it should come back and be like, here's what's good, here's what's missing. Do you want to automatically update? Okay, so that took about 3 minutes. And again, I think it's because it went and did a bunch of accessibility research, which is great because, like we're obviously not recreating these personas like all the time. And we do want like the best, most up-to-date information to help the model, do whatever task it needs to do. So here for the audit results, it tells me like general information, like when it was created, that sort of thing. And it tells me, the strengths, what's good, gaps identified, any outdated content it may have found, and then it suggests some improvements. So I could go ahead and say, apply all the improvements, only the critical ones. I can choose, or I can just give it some feedback. But instead, I'm going to do nothing because I think you get the point. So that's kind of like the gist of this thing. It's really good for, just making subject matter experts for whatever task it is that you need to do. And one thing that I wanted to call out, which is why I wrote subagents down here, is that these ultimately are just Claude skills. And because they are Claude skills with these like rich descriptions, Claude will automatically load personas when it's trying to do a task that kind of matches one of the persona's description. So you don't have to like automatically load them all the time. If it makes sense to load one, in my case, like Claude plugin dev definitely makes sense every time, since that's what this repo is for. But let's say that I was adding something that needed UX design help. If a subagent got spun up, it could automatically, by looking at the description, figure out, hey, I want to use that persona, and then load it. And then if you're creating your own custom subagents, you can specify skills that they should use just automatically. So you've got these namespaced skills that you can give your subagents if you are creating them. So I guess last thing would be, this is all open source. The repo that I'm making these plugins in is dgca/MAI, which is for my AI toolkit. And if you have any feedback, hit me up on Farcaster, open up an issue, contact me somehow. Cool. So hope you like this. And if you find this useful, let me know, because that would mean a lot to me. Cool. See you guys.